This is my philodendron silver cloud. It's seen better days. Today, my philodendron is looking very leggy. You can see it doesn't have that many leaves, and the leaves that are growing are either at the base of the plant or at the top of the plant. And there's a lot of stems that don't have any cuttings in the middle, making it looking leggy rather than bushy. Today, I'm going to share with you how easy it is to actually turn a leggy philodendron to make it look a lot more bushy and full and lush. So first of all, what we're going to do is locate nodes. The reason for that is nodes are important. Nodes are where the new leaves will grow out of it and where new stems will grow out of it. You can locate the nodes on the stem. So with the stem, you can see where the leaves are growing out of it. That's where a node is located. Nodes are also seen on the stem where you can see brown marks on the stem. So the brown marks actually circulate the whole stem, and that's where nodes will be located as well. So what we're going to do is get some clean clippers and cut in between the nodes. Now I'm doing this not only by getting new fresh cuttings of a philodendron that I can use to propagate new plants, but also this harsh kind of pruning is going to make the actual remaining plant basically force the plant to produce leaves, but not just at the top, but more towards the bottom of the stem, so that it's actually going to fill out better over time, because it's not going to have areas where the stems doesn't have any leaves. It's going to force the plant to grow and activate those remaining nodes that are on the remaining stem. So once we have the cutting, with the cutting, we're looking for the cutting to have, I would say with a philodendron, more like 3 nodes, because I find that even having 1 or 2 nodes, I find that it's not as successful as having a cutting that has at least 3 nodes. Because if you have one sort of node, if that actual node dies, it's not going to grow new leaves or roots from it. If you have 2 nodes, yes, chances are it's going to be more successful to propagate a new philodendron out of it. But I find that 3 is the best, so that the actual cutting is not too long, but also if 2 nodes die, you still have a 3rd node to actually grow new roots. And what we're going to do is that also the other part is, if the stem on the cutting is too long, what's going to happen, it's going to be very difficult for the actual cutting to draw water. It's like a straw. If you have a very long straw, it's harder to actually draw water through the straw when you're having a drink. But when you have an actual cutting that has a long stem, it's the same thing. It's very hard for the plant to actually draw water and nutrients from whatever growing medium that you place it in. So just make sure that with the cutting is not too long, the stem cutting is not too long. I find with the stem cutting, having something around about 5 to 7 centimeters is good. And also having the nodes, 3 individual nodes. And also with the stems that you have, don't throw them away. On this, there is a chance for these stems, even though it doesn't have any leaves on it, to actually grow new philodendron plants out of it. So I'm not going to throw these stems away. And also, I just forgot to mention that also, if you do have a cutting, just make sure that the cutting has at least 1 leaf on it, or even better 2. 2 makes it more successful, just in case 1 leaf dies. And if the cutting has an immature leaf growing at it, cut it away, because you don't want the cuttings to have immature leaves, because what can happen is that the plant may prioritize in trying to send nutrients to maintain and grow that immature leaf, where with a fresh propagation, you wanted the plant or the cutting to actually to grow new roots rather than new leaves. You can actually place the cutting in water and growing the roots in water. Just make sure that the leaves are not sitting underneath the water, and only the stem and the nodes are sitting in the water, and just replace the water on a weekly basis. Then once the roots grow to around about 5 centimeters, which is approximately 3 inches, you can transfer into a soil medium. So a soil medium that can maintain some moisture and also is well draining. My soil mixture for a philodendron consists of equal parts of potting mix, orchid bark, horticultural charcoal, perlite, and I also put in worm casting as well. And this soil mixture, I find it does maintain some moisture, but also is well draining as well. In this case, I'm actually going to use these cuttings and put it back into the mother plant. And by doing this, it's going to make the mother plant look a lot bushier over time, because the pot is actually going to have a lot more new individual plants in it. So over time, the pot that contains the most amount of philodendron plants is going to have a lot more leaves growing out of it. And what I'm doing with the cuttings is I'm dipping it in a rooting hormone. Now you can use any rooting hormone that you like. I'm using Yates rooting hormone because it's the cheapest one I can find. So I dip it in that rooting hormone, and I'm going to put it back into with the mother plant that's growing in sphagnum moss. I happen to like to grow my philodendrons in sphagnum moss. I find it a lot more easier compared to soil, but like I mentioned before, you can still grow philodendrons in soil if you prefer it that way. And what I'm going to do with the actual stems, I'm doing the same. I'm going to dip it in the rooting hormone and layer it down in the sphagnum moss. You also, I find with this philodendron stem, there's a front way and a back way. You can tell the actual front of the stem because it doesn't have arrow roots. Now, what arrow roots are? They're roots that sometimes you see that grow on the stem. They kind of look like little bumps on the stem. And if you see these, this is fantastic, because if you put those arrow roots at the bottom, and it gives a plant a better chance to actually grow a new philodendron plant out of it. And I just use sphagnum moss to lightly cover the ends and the top of the stem cutting. And with stem cuttings, because it doesn't have any leaves on it, I find for it to grow a new plant, it's more difficult compared to a cutting that has leaf. So if you find that your stem cuttings that don't have leaves, it doesn't propagate into new plants, it's fine. It's quite normal that it's not as successful. And if it does, it's like an extra bonus. So I'm going to pop all those stem cuttings in the original mother plant pot. And then what I'm going to do is, with this philodendron, the actual sphagnum moss has also been pre-moistened as well. So I actually don't need to actually water this pot, because the actual sphagnum moss is already moist. It's not soggy, but it's just moist. And that's what you want. If you're going to grow your philodendron in sphagnum moss, you want it to be moist and never completely dry. Then once I've done that, I'm going to pop this philodendron back in the area where it receives a lot of bright indirect sunlight. And I'm putting it on top of my plant shelf. So this is a plant shelf I use to actually film a lot of videos. I use as a background. And it's in a room that has 2 actually windows in it. So you have one window which is larger, which is a south-facing window, receives a lot of bright indirect light from that south-facing window. And it also has a smaller window on the west side as well. So I find with philodendron, they don't like direct sunlight on it. Well, especially the harsh afternoon sunlight. It may cope with the more gentle morning sunlight, but not the harsh afternoon sunlight. And I find that with my philodendron, it prefers to have indirect sunlight rather than direct sunlight on it. because if it has direct sunlight on it, I find that the leaves tend to burn. Now, a lot of my philodendron leaves here have gone a bit brown. The reason for that is that I actually forgot to water it and I let the sphagnum moss completely dry, and that caused the leaves to go brown and crispy. So if you're growing your actual philodendron in sphagnum moss, or even if you're growing your philodendron in soil, then make sure that the soil is not completely dry before you re-water it. So make sure there is always a little bit of moisture in the soil or the sphagnum moss or whatever growing medium you're growing your philodendron in. So over time, what's going to happen is that the mother plant is going to produce leaves on the remaining stem, and so that way it's not going to look as leggy but more bushy. Also, hopefully the new cuttings and the new propagations is going to grow a new plant out of it, and that way over time, because there's more plants in the pot, there's more chances of more leaves, so it's going to look more bushy over time. So that's how easy it is to actually make a leggy philodendron into one that's looking full and lush. So if you have any techniques of your own, I'd love to read about it in the comment section down below. So the best way to actually make it full and lush is to give it a harsh pruning and to propagate new plants. If you like this content, don't forget to hit the likes button and help your planty lady out by also subscribing to the channel. And if you want to know interesting facts about philodendrons, watch this video here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.